Good morning. This is Daniela Vincenti from Euractiv. We are here with Hendrik Bourgeois, who is the Vice President for Government Affairs of GE, but also Chair of the TTIP Taskforce at AmCham EU. So we're heading for the 12th round of negotiation on TTIP next week in Brussels. What do you expect coming out of this round?
So, first of all, we expect progress. We think this is a round that will set the scene for a momentum for the rest of the year. We know that both sides come to the table, to the negotiating table, with serious commitment to make progress, and there's still plenty of room for opportunity to make progress in a wide variety of areas. We know that the European Union is going to be interested in making progress on public procurement. Both parties can make progress on services. There's still a
precisely on public procurement.
Yeah.
It is a contentious area, and what would you think would be a positive outcome?
For us, for the American Chamber of Commerce to the European Union, we think that restrictions for European companies to participate in American U.S. public procurement should be eliminated. Mm-hmm. I mean, we don't see why the U.S. government, federal or state governments, would have to limit participations of European companies to their public procurement. We are asking this on a regular basis from European governments and European public authorities to make sure that public procurement takes place on a level playing field, that procurement decisions are taken on the basis of price, on the basis of technology, on the basis of quality, not on the basis of the nationality of the participants. So we find it totally normal that the US government should do the same.
But do you see a perception in the US that there is actually a need for them to move towards being much more open than they have been in the past?
Well, that's my hope. That is my hope.
Right.
Whether I have the perception that they will actually move is a difficult question for me to answer. Mm-hmm. I mean, this is a negotiation, and like in any negotiation, all parties will make representations, will take positions, public positions, with the hope that their public positions will influence the other side's willingness to enter into compromises. I mean, it's very difficult to predict, but our strong belief is that it would be beneficial for TTIP and for reaching a balanced agreement, for reaching an agreement that is comprehensive and ambitious, to have a public procurement chapter that addresses these concerns, not only because it's going to be helpful for European industry and European companies, but because TTIP is going to be, I think, the model for future trade agreements. And so, if TTIP doesn't go far enough in public procurement, then US companies are going to suffer as well going forward.
Right, and reciprocity is definitely the key for fair trade. Now, negotiators will also discuss for the first time the EU's proposal on the investment court. Mm-hmm. The US has always been has always thought to have a TTIP with ISDS. Mm-hmm. Do you think that there is now a growing understanding that the arbitration system needs to evolve?
Well, I'm not sure whether the arbitration system needs to evolve. I think, first of all, the European Commission should be commended for the fact that they recognize the political reality, which is that there is a very low level of public trust around ISDS. And so the fact that the European Commission came up with a proposal to try to address that problem is a positive thing. We believe that ISDS as it exists today, is actually a pretty balanced system of investor protection. We don't think it is necessarily skewed towards overprotecting investors. We don't think that the current system somehow generates regulatory chilling effect or leads to a regulatory chilling effect. So we're actually quite happy with the current approach, or an approach which has been included, for instance, in CETA. And so, as a matter of substance, we're not necessarily asking for ISDS to change as an organization. We do think, however, it's important to address the perception that ISDS somehow needs to change and that there's something wrong in the current system. And so, we're hopeful that this will be a positive step towards finding a balanced solution, which at the same time will continue to protect investors and generate the type of economic growth and investments that are necessary, particularly in the European Union, but in other countries of the world. And at the same time, allay fears and address these concerns that a number of stakeholders in the process have about the legitimate nature of this arbitration system.
So you feel that this is not anymore a roadblock on the way of reaching an agreement?
Again, it's difficult for me to predict how the USTR is going to react to this. It's clear that the US companies who are following this debate are not concerned, obviously, with the current system. Whether the proposal of the European Commission goes too far in addressing these perceived problems is another question, and there are certainly things in the European Commission's proposal where we're not happy with, where we feel that it's maybe going too far in protecting the interests of the host states. If you take what the European Commission is proposing and you put this in another context, and you say, well, okay, we'll have this now for the US-EU relationship, but imagine that we would have this type of proposal also in other types of trade relationships. I'm not sure whether, everybody who's currently criticizing the current ISDS system would do the same thing.
Do you see up to now major other roadblocks that could derail the whole process?
Look, I think the major roadblock for this year remains the ability of both parties to get out of their comfort zones. And both parties will have to make compromises. Both parties will have to make concessions, and it's going to be, I think, not easy for either parties to reach an agreement which is substantive by the end of the year. I think the Europeans are concerned that somehow the Americans will try to push for an agreement by the end of the year because they have some type of artificial political deadline. And so the Europeans will try to make sure that the agreement is substantive, is ambitious, is comprehensive, and maybe there's a perception that the United States will try to get an agreement by the end of the year just to make sure that the current administration can demonstrate that it has achieved something. On the other hand, my hope is also that the Europeans will understand that there is political momentum. And so therefore, we need to be careful also that the European side doesn't push too much for something that is too close to perfection, because perfection is sometimes the enemy of the good.
Right, so perfection is the enemy of the good, and you need to try to push both partners have to come out of their comfort zone. But the context of the US elections and on the trade side, really pushing TPP, the Trans-Pacific Partnership, to the finishing line is anyhow an incognita. If we look at the possibility also to finish TTIP, the Commission has always said they don't want, the Commission and the Parliament, they don't want a TTIP light. Mm-hmm. The Parliament said they want, if there is no ambitious deal, there is no deal. Mm-hmm. From the business side, do you think you could agree on a TTIP light, on a living agreement that could then, in the future, move to the next step?
Look,
TTIP 1.0, TTIP 2.0, something like that.
We need to be careful about the terminology here. We would not promote, or we would not think that a TTIP light would be a good thing. We've always taken the position that we need an ambitious agreement, we need a comprehensive agreement. And so I also don't think that this is what is currently being suggested by the US side, that somehow we need a TTIP light. What we think is important is that we take the advantage of this momentum. I think the current political situation in the United States may actually sharpen the ambitions, which is good, and we should take the opportunity. And in any event, Daniela, the TTIP, if it's going to be a successful agreement, will have to be a living agreement. It will have to be a living agreement because, take for instance the regulatory cooperation chapter, right? There needs to be the inclusion of provisions in TTIP that will enable regulatory cooperation in the future for things that we're not thinking of today, right? And so, of course, the TTIP will in a way never be finalized, because there will always be opportunity to reduce barriers to trade. There will always be opportunities to reduce barriers to investments. We hope, frankly, that both sides will reach a substantive political agreement, and if there are still open questions by the end of the year that cannot be addressed, I think we would be, depending on what these things are, of course, I think that we would potentially be in favor of seeing both parties reaching an agreement by the end of the year, potentially.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.